Hey, how's everybody doing out there in YouTube land today? It's good to see you. Welcome. We got anybody in the crowd there? If you're in the crowd, go ahead and type me a chat in the chat bar, or if you want, send me a remind text. Just let me know you're there. Hope everybody's doing well today. We are only 2 lectures away from being done with this semester. I hope you're as excited as I am. Did everybody have a good Thanksgiving? I hope you did it in a socially responsible way. I hope you had some turkey, some ham, and whatever Thanksgiving festivities you like. I had a good day. It was a little bit quiet. I didn't really have anybody out there with me, but it wasn't a bad, little quiet Thanksgiving with my family. So let's go ahead and get started with today's lecture. Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about Erik Erikson. We're going to talk about the change in self-esteem that occurs across the lifespan. We're going to talk about personality and feelings as predictors of successful aging. We're going to talk about attachment, specifically romantic attachment in later adulthood, and the keys to successful aging. So let's go ahead and get started if we can. Remember, we've been talking about Erik Erikson and personality development this entire semester. And if you remember, I suggested to you that Erik Erikson said that our personality evolves as we face 8 different age-appropriate tasks that occur throughout our life. And you'll see those listed right here beside me. And just remember, for the final exam, I'm going to be interested in you knowing about Erikson's theory completely from beginning to end. So you remember in infancy, we have basic trust versus mistrust, where the child learns to develop a sense of hope. Toddlerhood is all about autonomy versus shame. In early childhood, the child learns a sense of purpose. When you first enter school, you learn a sense of competence. Adolescence is about developing a sense of identity and a fidelity to the world in which you belong in. In early adulthood, it's all about intimacy versus isolation and finding love, and without losing a sense of self. I suggested to you that in middle adulthood, it's about generativity versus stagnation and learning how to care for others and build a better world without losing your sense of self. And in old age, which is what we're going to talk about today, is what they call the conflict is integrity versus despair. At this point, you're at the end of your life, and all you can do really is look back upon that life and ask, did I live my life well? Did I really get all I was supposed to get out of life? Did I matter? Did I make a change in the world? Was my life valuable? And so what Erikson suggested is that we're going through this existential crisis when we're trying to figure out whether or not our life really mattered. And we need this because at this time, our body is beginning to break down. The only thing you've got left are the memories of a lifetime. And were those memories worth it? Was this life review? Does it show that you did it correctly? And so he argued that during this page, where our conflict is integrity versus despair. And if you're able to look back on your life finally and see that you sort of solved all of these crises, you'll develop a sense of what he called a wisdom, ability to understand the circle of life. And actually, Erikson thought that it was very important for older people to do this, because in facing death the proper way, without a sense of despair, gives courage to the younger generation that has to live their life. So in a sense, he's arguing that at this stage, you're setting an example for those people who have yet to go through the stages of life that you have. So the stage, the crisis at this page, at this particular period, is integrity versus despair. All right. Now, and he argues that we engage in this life review, if you will. When you look back on your life experiences, how about that marriage? How about the job? How about the kids? Did everything you did it matter? Did you really make an impact on this world? And in fact, there are some people who suffer depression in older age, and one of the ways in which therapists treat some of these people is engaging in reminiscence therapy, which is where you look back on your life, trying to evaluate, interpret, and reinterpret those life events. Sometimes it's useful to go back and think about what happened, and your therapist may lead you through that to try and help you realize that the life that you lived was worthwhile. Okay? Self-esteem. I don't know if you folks knew this, but self-esteem changes throughout the lifespan. I've got a link down here at the bottom of this page to Rosenberg's self-esteem scale. It's a 10-question self-esteem scale that allows you to evaluate your global feelings, positivity towards yourself or your self-esteem. And this scale has been around for probably 50, 60 years now. And longitudinal research has shown that self-esteem, our global evaluation of ourselves, changes throughout our lifespan. And look at this. Your self-esteem, if you've ever talked to a 4 or a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old, you'll notice that they have an unusually positive sense of self. And this is before the big bad world comes in and starts giving you that true feedback that lets you know that maybe you're not all you thought you were. And so you'll notice that your self-esteem is really, really high in your early and middle childhood days, and then it tanks quite a bit in the teenage years. You folks remember your teenage years, adolescence. It was sort of tough. Maybe the boy or the girl that you liked turned you down one day, you got a bad test, maybe your friends didn't invite you to go to the mall after school. You know, self-esteem really tanks in the teenage years as we, for the first time, meet the true feedback that we will be getting as adults in our life. Now, you'll notice that self-esteem sort of picks up a little bit in early childhood and then stays the same through much of your 30s and 40s. And if you're like, as I am, I'm 50 now, one of the things that you're going to find is as you get a little bit older and the kids start to grow up, you're going to start to feel better about yourself, right? That self-esteem is going to rise up. I have never been as confident as I feel right now at 51 years of age. And so as you move towards the middle and early late adulthood, you'll notice that the self-esteem peaks. But the point I really wanted to make for this particular chapter is this idea of self-esteem declining significantly as you move into your 70s and 80s. Does anybody have any idea why your self-esteem might begin to decline in your 70s or 80s? I see that we have a couple of people watching, so if you've got a theory, please type it in the chat bar or send me a remind text. Okay? And so, so self-esteem as a general rule begins to decline. Now, for some people, it's going to decline more than it will for other people. What kinds of factors cause a more precipitous decline in self-esteem in late adulthood? Well, being widowed, being institutionalized, that is put into a retirement center, some sort of care center, or having physical impairment. These kinds of things are going to decrease your overall global evaluation of yourself. People who have low religious commitment, again, I'm going to hit that many, many times. Not only is getting exercise good for your physical and cognitive well-being, but having a sense of spirituality and a sense of religiosity is also going to help you. And the research shows that having a high religious commitment sort of acts as a buffer against decreases in self-esteem that occur in late adulthood. And you know what? As you get weaker and sicker, it just makes sense that your overall global evaluation of yourself is going to decrease. So you'll notice sort of this pattern of self-esteem. It starts off really high when we're kids, you know what I mean? And you don't have reality. You're sort of that 7 or 8-year-old, you can run fast, you can jump fast, you're going to be a major league ball player or a super duper scientist. And when you go into your teenage years and you start developing that sense of self, all those negative things that happen to you for the first time, getting turned down on a date, getting excluded from a social event is really going to affect your feelings of self-esteem. But as we go into adulthood, we start to lose those sort of teenage weaknesses, if you will, and our self-esteem rises up a little bit and stays the same in early adulthood, peaks a little bit in middle adulthood, but still never makes it as high as it was when we were 6 and 7-year-olds. And then you'll see that self-esteem starts to sort of tank as we move into late adulthood. I see we have Michaela Beresnick in class. It's good to see you, Michaela. I hope you're doing well today. Thanks for showing up. And if you have anything to add to the lecture, I would love to hear your comments, Michaela. Okay. Personality in late adulthood. How does personality affect your life outcomes in late adulthood? I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Big 5 personality inventory. It's an omnibus personality test that tests the 5 major factors of personality. And those 5 factors are openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, right? And so research has been done, longitudinal research has been done where they ask people to fill out these personality inventories, and then they follow them through late adulthood in an attempt to find out what kinds of personality traits provide a buffer against negative life outcomes in late adulthood, right? And so you see them listed right here beside me. Conscientiousness predicts a lower mortality risk from childhood through late adulthood. You know what? Being conscientious and not doing stupid things is always going to decrease your risk of mortality. How many of you have done dangerous and stupid things because you really weren't being a conscientious person? Conscientiousness does provide a buffer against mortality risks in adulthood. Anxious. How many of you are depressed, nervous, and over-emotional with anxiety and anger? If you do, this is going to be linked to a higher incidence of depression and higher frailty as you get older. So high neuroticism is linked to negative emotions and is linked to being more frail as you get to be an older person. Okay? Higher conscientiousness is also linked to a longer life and reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, right? You know what? People with a higher level of agreeableness and a lower level of neuroticism are less likely to develop dementia. Higher levels of conscientiousness, openness to experience, agreeableness, and extroversion. All of these traits are going to predict whether or not you experience depressive syndromes in late adulthood. And you know what? I'd like to go back and talk about Michaela typing in me. You know, one of the things about my grandma, Nana, the 101-year-old lady, is she does not have a bad temper. She is not high in neuroticism. Absolutely not at all. She's a very agreeable person. She's open to experience, and she is a very conscientious person. And Nana is probably the healthiest person I ever met. I actually went and talked to her yesterday. I hadn't seen her in about 7 months, so I went and had a socially distanced visit with her yesterday. And she was in a happy mood, even though she'd just come back from the doctor. She's got ovarian cysts, and they can't operate to take the cysts out, so they have to, every 6 to 8 weeks, they have to go in there with a needle and suck the fluid out. And you know what? She had just come out of the doctor's appointment, and she was in a little bit of pain, but you know what? She was super duper happy and smiling, and she said, you know what? I've been healthy all my life, so I guess this little sickness is going to be okay. And she just seemed super duper happy, and she was telling me how she's lived such a good life, and you know what I mean? She seemed really at peace with death, even though we are all hoping she doesn't experience that anytime soon. But she had just this positive attitude. And I think it's this positive, agreeable attitude that has kept Nana so happy for her whole entire life. And I said goodbye to her, and I said, you know what, Nana, I will see you in 3 weeks at Christmas. And just like she always said, she smiled at me and she said, well, if I'm still living, I'll see you at Christmas, and gave me that big old smile. And you know what? I believe it is my grandmother's personality traits that have really allowed her to live this healthy, extremely long life. Now, not only did we talk about personality traits, the big 5 personality traits, but we also talked about emotional and impulse control. And we talked about how important it was to develop this impulse control and the emotional control in early and middle childhood, because I suggested to you that it had better outcomes for relationships, for school, and for adult financial outcomes. You know what? Not only is self-control important for the living years during your early and middle childhood, but it's also important for your well-being in late adulthood. So self-control, feelings of being in control of yourself are linked to well-being, decreased depression, increased physical activity, and less medical complaints and life expectancy. So really, and you know, one of the things that happens is as you get older, sometimes you lose a little bit of your ability to control your own outcomes. And it's when you start to have to rely on other people, you lose that self-control, that the negative cascade towards death can occur. In fact, if you look underneath me, there's a little graph right here that describes a very, very famous study done in the 1970s by Ellen Langer and Rodin in 1976. And what they did was they went into a retirement facility that had multiple levels. And on 2 levels, they picked out 2 levels for the experiment. And on 1 level, they gave everybody on that particular level, all these retired people, they gave them a plant. And they told them, here's a plant for you. You need to take care of this plant. On the next level, they went in and gave everybody a plant, and they said, here's a plant for you. We're going to water that plant for you. You don't have to do anything, but here's a plant for you to look at. And what they did was they followed these people for a year. And they found that the people who were given the plant and told that they had to take care of it themselves, these people had fewer medical complaints and also had a lower risk of mortality than those people who were given the plant and told, we'll take care of this plant for you. So it's these feelings of being in control of your life that also help give you a positive mindset. It's a good example. My father's 81 years old and his tractor broke down. It's the end of his lawn mowing tractor. And you know, he needs a new mower. My wife suggested, you know what, Chris, why don't we just mow his lawn for him? Because he's old, he shouldn't be out there doing that work. And what my wife doesn't realize is that for my dad, mowing his own lawn really makes him feel good about himself. And if I took that task away from my dad, my wife says I'm being lazy, but what she doesn't really understand is that being in control, being able to mow his own life, his own yard, is something that's very important for my 81-year-old dad. And if I took that task away from him, it might help him spiral towards his death. So it's very important that people have a sense of control and that we do everything we possibly can to make sure that our older parents, our family members, still retain a sense of control. Even if they live in a place where there's assisted living, even if they have to take care of them, they're no longer fully independent, we have to give them some kinds of ways to have control over their life. I will tell you that my 101-year-old grandmother still lives by herself. She still drives her own car. Now, she just drives it around town. She goes and gets her hair fixed every day, and she goes up to the grocery store. But she takes care of herself. And you know what? I think that is what really, really, really helps her stay young and stay healthy. Okay? Now, here's the thing. As there are some things my grandma can't do anymore. There's some things my dad can't do anymore. There are ways in which they can't take care of their life like they used to. And really, what they have to learn how to do, what my grandma's learned how to do, what my dad's learned how to do, is to sort of optimize the ways in which they can affect their life and compensate for the ways in which they have weaknesses and limitations. Does that make sense? So, my dad, he is no longer, as an 81-year-old guy who's missing his left leg. When my dad was in his 60s and 70s, I used to take him to the Carolina football games every Saturday. My dad loves to go see the Tar Heels get their butts kicked on the football field every week. And every time he thinks we're going to win, but I know better. But he loves to go, and that's sort of a thing that really, really, really helped my dad feel good about things. And in his 60s, we could park in the parking lot and we could walk to the football stadium. In the 70s, I still took him to the football game, but you know what? He had to compensate a little bit for his inability to walk, and we then took the handicap bus all the way to the front gate of the Keenan Stadium to go to the football games. And you know what? Now my dad's in his 80s, and he can't even walk the 300 or 400 yards from the front gate to the seat. He can't climb the steps into the stadium. So you know what? Now what I do on Saturdays is I take my dad down to the local tavern. It's only a few steps into the tavern, and we sit in front of the big screen TV, and I buy him a cold beer, and we watch the Tar Heels get their butts kicked on TV. And so what my dad has learned how to do, what I've helped my dad do, is to learn how to compensate for his loss of physical abilities by still enjoying the things he used to enjoy, but we have to compensate for the way we do those things. And so that's one of the things that you're going to have to learn how to do as you get older. That's one of the things that you're going to have to help your older family members do as they start to lose their physical abilities and their abilities start to disintegrate. You're going to have to find ways to compensate for the limitations that they have. And so, adults respond to loss of functioning by being more selective in their task choice. Can't go to the football game? Let's go to the tavern and watch it. It still gets him out because that's what he wants. He wants to go out and have an event on Saturday afternoons. So we don't sit at the house. I carry him out to the bar, but I carry him out to a bar where he can park and get to the table and really enjoy the game, right? And so what you have to do is you have to learn how to optimize your behavior using tools. So Dad really, really fought against the cane for a long time, and he got to where he could hardly walk. And it was really difficult for my father to sort of accept the cane, because for him, it was like giving up and admitting that he was weak. And it took a long time for me to convince my father that, you know what, the cane doesn't mean anything about who you are. It's just a way that you optimize your experience in life. And for my pops, it was really, you would be surprised how hard it was for my one-legged father to start using a cane. He said, that means I'm handicapped. And I was like, no, Dad, it just means you need a little bit of help. So one of the things that you're going to have to do as you move into late adulthood is you're going to have to learn how to use the tools to optimize your performance, and you're going to have to learn how to be more selective about the things you do. And that way, you can still engage in those kinds of activities that make you a vibrant, happy person that allows you to live this longer life with more well-being. I hope that makes sense. Now, one of the things that happens as you get older is that you're going to start to lose relationships. Not necessarily because you dislike people, but because you're not moving around as much. You're not going to work. You're not traveling to as many events as you used to. So in a sense, you're going to have less close attachment relationships. But you know what I found about people like my dad? He's not worried about it. He doesn't feel anxiety because he doesn't have his friends that he used to hang out with. He doesn't go down to the bowling league on Wednesday mornings and bowl as much anymore. But you know what? It doesn't seem to bother him. And so he seems to be secure in his attachments. Now, attachment security is important in all facets of life. And so, being securely attached in late adulthood is also good for your health, just like it is throughout your life. And so, secure attachment style in late adulthood is still going to predict better physical and well-being outcomes. Now, one of the things that you'll hear, I especially hear this on Facebook from my friends who are in their 50s and 60s, just like I am, is we all talk about getting rid of those friends that make you sad. How many of you have drama in your life? You're all young, vibrant people who have tons of relationships. Some of those relationships cause you great anxiety and sadness. I'm sure you might have a brother, you might have a coworker or a sister or a cousin that really stresses you out and makes you angry. One of the things that you'll notice in late adulthood is adults who are engaged in successful aging in adulthood, they cut loose the relationships that cause them grief. And they focus on those relationships that make them happy. We'll call this socio-emotional selectivity theory. You know what? I don't have as many friends now, but I've cut loose some of the friends that really bothered me as a young man. And what you're probably going to do is you're going to learn that some people's friendship is not worth the grief and sadness that they cause you. And so older adults are going to become more selective about their social networks, and they're going to spend time with people who make them happy, who give them rewarding relationships. There you go, Andre. You definitely do. It's what you got to do, Andre. I'm tired of being sad. I ain't got no time for sadness. I got no time to be brought down or made to feel bad about myself. I did that in my teens. I did that in my 20s. I let people who wanted to hurt me hurt me. But you know what? I've cut some people away. You know what? I hate to say this. Last year I cut a friend away who's been my best friend since the age of 13. But just life events, our philosophies on life, just got so difficult that all we ever did was argue. And so I cut away my best friend. And you know what? It's sad, but I didn't like the sadness that he brought into my life. And his wife contacted me about 6 months after we broke off our friendship and asked me what in the hell I was doing. And I just told her, hey, it doesn't make me happy. I can't do it. I can't progress on in this relationship. And you know what? You're going to find that older folks, I got less time. I'm just going to hang out with the people that make me happy. You know what? Older folks aren't going to make as many friendships. And you know what? If given the opportunity, you're going to hang out with the friends you've had for years rather than making new friends. But you know what? These friendships you have are going to be less problematic and less negative because you're going to cut all the ones that cause you grief away. And you're just going to be left with those ones that make you happy. You know what? One of the things that's going to happen as you move into late adulthood is your family, especially your young family, is going to be so busy living their own life that they're not going to have as much time and energy to devote to you. But you know what? That's okay because your friendships that you have are going to be more important in predicting your mental health. It's those people in your bowling league, those people in your poker league, those people that you hang around with from day to day are going to be more important in predicting your mental health. Now, it is still important to have a social group around you. But that social group doesn't necessarily need to be family like it used to be. It can be friends later in life. And you know what? The research even suggests people who have a bunch of close friends are less likely to die. So they followed these people across 7 years, and they found that those that had more close friendships were less likely to die in this longitudinal study than those that didn't have friendships. Okay? Now, your book does talk about the fact that there will be some people that follow you throughout your life. And these people, they may be important. You may not talk to them for a year, 2 years, 5 years, but there are going to be people that come back in your life throughout your developmental life. and sort of like we're all convoying on the way to late adulthood and death. And some of the people that I knew in high school, I may not talk to them for 5 years, 10 years, but then they come back into your life and they sort of, they're this network that never really goes away. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that there are people from childhood that are still there. And we may not talk all the time, but still, they come back in and they give you support and you give them support. Sort of this idea of the convoy model of social relationships. Why are having friends, lifelong friends, why are having poker playing friends or bowling friends or book club friends, why is it important? Well, social support is a protective factor against poor health, cognitive decline, and death, if you will. So higher social support in late adulthood is associated with increased life satisfaction, decreased disease symptomology, and the ability to stay healthy. You're going to be less likely to be depressed. You're going to be less likely to go into the home, to be institutionalized and go into one of those care facilities. And you know what? You're going to be less likely to die. So social support is very important as you move into late adulthood. And just like this lady beneath me, you may not need a nephew or a niece or your kids, but you need somebody. You need some friends to be with, right? Now, older adulthood. You know what? Most people in late adulthood are married, and being married helps insulate you your daily mood. It's going to provide sort of a buffer against the ups and downs that go with mood. It's going to protect you from depression. So having a good marriage is going to be helpful for you as you move into later adulthood. I talked about biological theories of dying, and we talked about telomere links, which is those little end parts of your chromosomes. And as they begin to fray, you move closer and closer to death. We have that sort of the Hayflick limit, how many times your cells can regenerate. And what they showed is that having a good spouse actually sort of seems to slow down this biological move towards death. Older adults who are married or partner are usually happier and live longer than those who are single. Woohoo! Good for me. I'm still married after 27 years. But it has to be a good marriage. It has to be a good marriage. So a negative relationship qualities, sort of such as arguing, fighting, or having a spouse that doesn't support you, is going to be linked to high blood pressure. And if you remember when we talked about biological theories of aging, I suggested to you that one of the things that occurs as you get older is your blood pressure may start to increase. And it's thought that this stress may be what causes you to become less immune to environmental factors that make you sick or cause you to die. Now, while over half of older adults are married, some are actually living together and just partnering up. So 3% of older adults are cohabitating, or as my grandma likes to say, living in sin, right? But you know what? Older folks, they may partner up, not necessarily for romantic love, but more for companionship. I have a family member. I don't want to call her out, but she's an older family member, and she's in her late 60s, and she doesn't have anybody. She's divorced now, and there is this gentleman who lives across town who is absolutely in love with her, and he just wants to be her friend, and he just wants to have a relationship with her. But she keeps pushing him away, because she doesn't find him romantically interesting. And we keep talking to her. We keep saying, we keep saying, you know what? You need to talk to this guy, Daniel. He's not a bad fellow. He just wants somebody to do things with. He wants a companion, if you will. And this family member of mine just seems unwilling to partner up with this dude. All he really wants is someone just to pal around with, which is important for older people. Now, it turns out that these cohabitating relationships that occur later in life, they are actually more stable than they are for younger adults. I think when you cohabitate as a younger adult, most people are looking to progress on to the next stage of marriage. And if the cohabitation doesn't work out, if you're living together and it doesn't work out, I think it may rupture and you move on to the next romantic partner. But that's not the way dating happens in late adulthood. Most of the people who are cohabitating, moving in together, are just doing it because they want a companion. And so these cohabitating relationships are going to be less likely to break off than cohabitating relationships early in adulthood. Is it as good as being married? The data is inconclusive, but there are some advantages with just having a live-in partner at this age. Now, 13% of women and 11% of men 65 years of older in the United States were divorced or separated. So a good number, a large minority of people are going to be divorced as they move into late adulthood. So people are going to get divorced in late adulthood as well. People get divorced, older adults get divorced for the same reason as they do in young adulthood. So sexual incompatibility, personality incompatibility, fighting, lack of support, all the reasons that cause you to get divorced in your 20s and 30s are the same reasons that you might get divorced as in late adulthood. But you know, the bummer of it is people who are divorced or separated are more likely to live in poverty or have health problems. You know, partnering up to pay the bills is a great idea. It saves a lot of money, makes that dollar go a little bit farther. Um, um, and you know, having that social support is going to make you feel and live more healthily. So it's important. Now, remarriage. You know what? Older adults do get remarried too. My mom died probably about 15 years ago, 67. She smoked herself into a grave. I hate it. She died of COPD from smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, and she died when she was 67. It crushed my father because he's the kind of guy that needs a companion, a life companion. And you know what? My dad, after my mom died, my dad used to help me taking the kids to school and to school events. And about 2 years after my mom died, he was at a bowling party with my two sons. He was chaperoning them at a bowling party, and he met this wonderful lady named Linda, who was chaperoning her 2 daughters, which turned out to be the same age as my 2 boys, and they struck up a friendship and got married. And so my dad got married, I think it was at 69 or 70 years of age. He went down to the Justice of Peace. I was the guy that signed there. I was the witness. And so my dad went and got married at the age of 70. I thought that was the coolest thing ever because Pops didn't give up. Now, I love my mom, and I miss her. And Miss Linda will be she'll be my stepmother, but she will never replace my mom. But I'm really, really happy for my dad because he found a life partner. And so, you know what? My dad got remarried, and you're going to find that people are living longer and getting divorced later in life, and people are going to die during these marriages, and so people are going to be more likely to get married in late adulthood. Now, the only thing is, these divorces that occur later in life are actually more likely to dissolve than marriages that occur early in life. So the divorce rates are 2.5 times higher for remarried older adults than they are for remarried younger adults. And you know what? The ties to the stepchildren are more tenuous. You know, Miss Linda loves my sons, and she takes care of them. And Miss Linda loves me. But you know what? Miss Linda's grown up, and I'm grown up. You know, she's older and I'm grown up. So really, we don't have as close a tie as we might have had if she had met and married my father when I was a young boy. So the ties to the stepchildren is more tenuous. Now, that doesn't mean that Miss Linda doesn't like me. It's just she's got adult children of her own. She's got adult grandchildren of her own that she's focused on. And so, the ties to me are less tenuous. Now, I'm not going to say this, I wouldn't do this, but if my father died or if Miss Linda died, the relationships that I have with her, if my dad were to die, or the relationship that her adult daughter has with my father, probably might not sustain itself after one of them dies, because the ties to stepchildren are more tenuous when you build these relationships later in adulthood. The children are grown up, so the ties are not going to be as strong as they might have been if the marriage had occurred earlier in life. Now, successful aging. You know what? When you look at people who grow up, you're going to notice that there are three sort of patterns of aging. Some people are going to get sick and be sickly early and late adulthood and die young. We'll call those pathological aging. My mom was a pathological ager based on her smoking and her level of stress. And she began to lose function in her late 50s. And by the time she was in her early 60s, my mom was housebound on oxygen because she couldn't breathe. My mom engaged in what you might call pathological aging. On the other hand, my father is what you would call normal aging. He's in his early 80s, but he's got high blood pressure. He's had a heart attack. He's had cancer. He doesn't move around very well. He's sort of getting forgetful and having that cognitive decline in the late 70s, early 80s. He's what you would call engaged in normal aging. And then there's my grandma, Nana. Nana's what you would call a successful ager. She never went to the doctor until she was in her 90s. She never had a chronic disease until she was probably, actually, I don't think she started having, she had a little bit of insulin trouble, diabetes in her late 90s. Her mind is still sharp as ever, and she still gets around and lives on her own. She's what you might call a successful ager. So I want you to think about your older adult family members. Are they normal agers? Are they successful agers? Or are they pathological agers? And if you look at your older family members, you'll notice real quickly that you can put them into one of these three categories. Now, what factors characterize successful aging? What kinds of qualities will make you more like my grandma than like my mother? You know what? Being proactive, engaging in proactive engagement. That is taking life by the throat and deciding what it is you want of life, and instead of letting life rule you. My mom, God bless her heart, she always seems like she was buffeted around by the bad things that happened in life. My mom didn't seem to be very proactive. Things happened to her and she reacted. She didn't go out and change her existence. She said, "What can I do, Chris? There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do." My mom was not proactive. She didn't go out and take the bull by the horns and decide, this is what I want for my life. Proactive engagement means going out there and deciding what it is you need and fixing problems and being sort of, instead of being reactive, being proactive. That's a quality that will lead you to successful aging. It's kind of funny. My grandma, Nana, who is 101, she actually worked at the retirement center until she was 95. And she used to say, "I just like to help the old people." And that was what kept her young. She was out there helping people who weren't as well off as she was. And I think that helped keep her alive. Wellness resources. You know what? Having activities, having the gym, having reading resources, all of these wellness resources can kind of help you engage in successful aging. a positive spirit, learned optimism, being an optimistic kind of person. And you know what? Nana had tons of relationships because the whole family just crowded around Nana. And we used to make over, and everybody celebrates Nana. And it's these relationships that help Nana. You know what? In fact, Nana had a best friend who died last year at the age of 100. And this lady's name was Bernice. And they had been friends for 75 years. Until the day Bernice died, they would call and talk to each other every day. They talked to each other for 75 years. And it's this valued friendship that also helps keep my grandma and also helped keep Bernice alive at such an advanced age. So if you want to be a successful ager, if you want to be one of those persons that doesn't get sick, that stays healthy and keeps your mind till later in life, I can't guarantee it, but learning to have feelings of control and being proactive in deciding what it is you want and what you need out of your life. Taking advantage of resources like physical activity and intellectual groups, having a positive attitude, and having friends. All of these things are going to help you be just like Nana and live happily until the age of 101 or 102. Now, remember I told you, it's your choice. It's your choice how you're going to live out your older years. Now, I can't guarantee that you're not going to get sick. I can't tell you that you're not going to have cancer. I can't tell you that something bad's not going to happen. But you know what? You can do a lot to maximize your chances, right? So you need to eat well. Stay away from that Bojangles. Please, please, please eat your greens, eat your vegetables, eat your collard greens, if you will. Stay active. Nana worked in the garden until she was in her 80s. They would make a garden and she'd go grab those tomatoes out. You have to be mentally stimulated. Nana worked 2 jobs. She worked 40 hours a week until she was 90. And you have to deal with things. You have to cope with things positively, right? By having a positive mental mindset or engaging in problem-focused coping, which is solving the problems that pop up in your life. Good relationships and taking care of yourself so that you don't get those chronic diseases associated with bad behavior, like high cholesterol, high sugar level, and smoking, and those things. My mom refused to take responsibility for her health. God bless her, it killed her at a young age. So, make the choice to have many, many years. It's up to you, folks. Make that choice. All right. Look, that's all I had to say for today. Thank you very much to the 4 of you who came and spent the entire class period with me. We're going to talk about Chapter 20 on Thursday, and that will be the end of this semester. Before I let you go, I do want to let you know that we are having a review session Sunday night at 8 p.m. I will send an announcement out about this, but we will have our final exam review on Sunday night at 8 p.m. If anybody has any questions, you can type them in the chat bar and I'll answer them offline. Otherwise, send me a remind text. That's all I have to say. It's been great seeing you, Michaela, Andre. Have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you in webinar on Wednesday afternoon. Take care and have a great day.